We got a new lawsuit and temporary restraining order demand that's been filed in the District of Massachusetts by 23 attorneys general representing primarily blue states that are trying to get back $8 billion worth of funding for children for their nutritional needs. It's under the SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And first, the United States Department of Agriculture said, we have a plan in September to allocate a rainy day fund of $6 billion to make sure that children don't starve during the shutdown while Donald Trump builds a golden ballroom. Then, a few days later, they got caught up in the politics and they issued another memo that said, we have the money and we're evaluating how to use it. Then a few days later, they sent out a memo to the states and said, we have the money, we could distribute it, but we're not going to, and then tried to blame the Democrats for keeping the government shut down, playing politics with children's lives. I'm Michael Popok. Let's cover this from MeidasTouch and Legal AF. New lawsuit just filed today up in Massachusetts, led by the Attorney General of California and others, Rob Bonta, the Attorney General of California, Gavin Newsom, the Governor of California, taking the leading role here in this particular lawsuit. I'll try to get Rob Bonta on to talk to us about this and brief our audience. But here's what we know so far. There is a program called SNAP, which has to do with making sure that children get proper nutrition, those that are below the poverty line, let's say. But of course, they're playing hostage with children's nutrition, letting children starve in order to make the point that they want the Democrats to approve the reopening of the government. The only reason the Democrats are not voting for the reopening of the government is they're trying to get another 22 million, many of the same 22 million people, covered with health insurance by having tax deductions added, continued for Obamacare. That's the fight, folks. It's not over migrants and illegals getting insurance. It's about making sure that 22 million Americans get insurance, many of which are in the same SNAP program that they're now putting at risk. And what the lawsuit says and what the temporary restraining order says is that there is an acknowledged rainy day fund. Congress made it clear that they want the SNAP program to continue while the government is shut down. No doubt about it. But they are not allowing it because first, in a September 30th report by the Department of Agriculture, they said, yeah, we have the funds and we have a contingency plan and we're going to lay it out. We've got $6 billion in a rainy day fund. Then the rainy day fund disappeared. Then they went and blamed the Democrats. And let me just give you where we are right now in terms of, here's what Rob Bonta had to say, the Attorney General of California, who I've had the pleasure to interview. He said, let's be clear about what's happening. For the first time ever, SNAP benefits will not be available to the millions of low-income individuals who depend on them to put food on the table. November SNAP benefits, Thanksgiving month, can and must be provided even with the government shutdown. USDA not only has the authority to use contingency funds, it has a legal duty. The Trump administration has chosen instead to play politics with this essential safety net that so many people depend on, including 5.5 million individuals in California alone. With the holidays around the corner, we're seeing costs for groceries continue to increase and food banks facing unprecedented demand. We're taking a stand because families will experience hunger and malnutrition if the Trump administration gets its way. While Donald Trump, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, continued, parades around the world trying to repair the economic damage he's done with his incompetence, he's denying food to millions of Americans who will go hungry next month. It's cruel and it speaks to his basic lack of humanity. He doesn't care about the people of this country, only himself. I mean, you can't deny they're playing politics because on September 30th, they said they had the money and a plan to pay for underprivileged children to keep them from starving to death. And then it changed. By October the 24th, they said they were suspending the program. Well, what changed? Let me guess. Where did the $6 billion go? That's a real question. Where did the $6 billion contingency plan go? The USDA said, well, we might need it for a hurricane or something. Are you kidding? We got starving children in America. Some of them Republican, by the way, if you want to play politics. Is part of the contingency plan being used to pay the military, the National Guard? How about the ballroom? We already know they took research and development grants that were for the military and put it into paying for the military and for the ballroom. Here's how the USDA has gotten political. Here's their statement that they made. We're approaching an inflection point for Senate Democrats. Look how they're playing politics with people's lives. Continue to hold out for the far left wing of the party, or reopen the government so mothers, babies, and the most vulnerable among us can receive timely WIC and SNAP allotments. Ugh, yuck. I mean, talk about calling it out right there. That's what they're doing. You know, the Democrats are for getting 22 million people covered with insurance, Americans, and they're for stopping starving babies. You see where the Republicans are at. Here's a statement about the SNAP lawsuit I thought you'd be interested in. Let's play the clip.
I'm going to kick it off here today to announce California's latest lawsuit against the federal government, and specifically the U.S. Department of Agriculture, also known as USDA, and Secretary Brooke Rollins. Using the current federal shutdown as a scapegoat, USDA has unlawfully suspended funds for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, for the first time in the program's history, informing state agencies that the federal government will withhold all November benefit payments. Trump and Rollins are cutting off benefits for more than 41 million Americans, red states and blue states, folks who rely on SNAP to put food on the table, even though there are billions of dollars in contingency funds and other funds that could be used to provide SNAP benefits during the shutdown. They are doing this on purpose. It is deliberate. It is intentional. They have the funds. They're just not using them. The vast majority of SNAP recipients are families with kids, elderly individuals, and people with disabilities. These are our most vulnerable. Society should be judged on how we treat the most vulnerable. Trump gets an F for what he is doing here to our kids and to our most vulnerable Americans. Here in California, our SNAP program, CalFresh, supports 5.5 million Californians every month, including 1.9 million children. All of them are counting on this program. They're counting on their government to follow through on its promise and to provide the support that they need. In abruptly suspending SNAP, Trump and Rollins have broken the law. They have forced states to scramble to try and clean up the federal government's mess. And worst of all, they've left 41 million Americans unsure of where their next meal will come from. With today's lawsuit, our coalition of 23 attorneys general and 3 governors who are standing up for the people in their state have made it clear that we refuse to stand by and allow the Trump administration to arbitrarily and unlawfully do away with a decades-old safety net program, the country's most important tool for fighting against hunger.
Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. As someone with an active online presence, privacy is really important to me. I've seen firsthand how easy it is for personal information to end up in places you'd never expect. Have you ever been a victim of identity theft? I have. Harassment, doxing. If you haven't, you probably know someone who has. Delete Me can help. They do all the hard work of wiping your and your family's personal information from hundreds of data broker websites. You just sign up, tell Delete Me what information you want removed, and their experts take it from there. They even send you regular personalized privacy reports showing what info they found, where they found it, and what they removed. And it's not a one-time thing. Delete Me is constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want online. The New York Times Wirecutter has even named Delete Me their top pick for data removal services. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/legalaf and use promo code legalaf at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/legalaf and enter code LegalAF at checkout. One more time, that's joindeleteme.com/legalAF, code LegalAF. Now what's going to happen? They're asking this Massachusetts judge to enter a temporary restraining order. With the temporary restraining order in place, it will compel the USDA to pay the contingency fee, to pay the money. Now, the Supreme Court doesn't like orders from federal judges forcing certain things to be paid, although they've been all over the map with their own rulings, allowing certain funding for overseas programs, denying certain funding for other programs as federal judges struggle with what is the status quo, what is being preserved. I think now you're talking about irreparable harm. You're talking about dying babies. I mean, literally. And a federal judge is going to have to step in. And the Supreme Court is going to have to declare once and for all what side they are on. Are they on the side of death and destruction? Are they on the side of starving children? Or are they on the side of the unitary president model to make sure Donald Trump has every ounce of power that he was allocated in their interpretation of the Article 2 of the Constitution? What side are you on? We're going to know soon enough because the rubber's going to meet the road right now with these SNAP payments. As Donald Trump runs around bragging about his golden ballroom, help dying American babies. Try that. So I'm going to continue to follow it right here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. This is going to be an up-to-the-minute issue. We're going to have temporary restraining orders being entered, likely, briefing around the issue. Follow all of it on Legal AF YouTube and Legal AF Substack. And, of course, we've got the MeidasTouch subscriber base here. Hit the free subscribe button. That's what keeps us in business, everybody. Our subscriber base, the size of our audience. And that's the way you can contribute. And of course, we've got the Legal AF podcast Wednesdays and Saturdays. And my hot takes, I do about 40 of them a week between MeidasTouch and Legal AF. Appreciate all of that. So till my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.